I must confess that that dream that I had that day has at many points turned into a nightmare.
But in the last year of his life, you should read Tavis Smiley's book on the death of a king. And the preachers turned on Doc. Wait now. See, some of you are angry with me, thinking I'm trying to steal Dr. King's legacy. Hell no. Don't put that on me. And don't let the white man put that on you so you could put that on me. I'm raising Dr. King because it is wrong for you to think that that man died because he had a dream. That man was a revolutionary thinker in the last days of his life. Some of his inner circle turned on him. They didn't agree with him talking against the war in Vietnam. He was hurting that his own staff, some of them disagreed with him. Then churches denied him. They didn't want him in their pulpit. Now it's easy to put his picture up and talk that crap about how you love him. You a damn liar if you loved him. I want you to listen. If you loved him, why did you let the writers of history write him down as a dreamer and pacify you with all these streets and boulevards named after him? But if you read his life in the last 2 years of his life, he met with my teacher. They had a beautiful discussion, February 66. I don't know what they talked about, but I know my teacher. He loved Dr. King, but he showed him prophecy. He showed him where we are to separate from this enemy and not be integrated into him as Moses didn't integrate the children of Israel into Pharaoh. So in that last night, when he said, I want to get the language straight tonight, he stopped talking Negro and began talking black. He even agreed that separation might be better for us for a while. Like a people sick or diseased, you take them out of the public and you heal them. And then you send them back to the world. I didn't know these were things that Dr. King was saying. And when I read it, I said, this man, you must know the reality of Dr. King. He's more than a dreamer. And don't you let them throw the dream speech on you from 63. Let them play for you the speech that he made in New York City when he condemned the hypocrisy of the Johnson government that's fighting a war in Vietnam against poor people there and practicing violence, then want Dr. King to preach nonviolence to us while they're training you to kill people that never did nothing to you overseas. Martin Luther King, just weeks before he was assassinated in a meeting with members of his staff, told Harry Belafonte he was melancholy because he feared that he was integrating his people into a burning house. Dr. King, 2 months before his assassination, sat with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad like two brothers. They got along like two brothers should. They spoke frankly, honestly to each other. And Dr. King asked the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, "Do you really think that all white people are devils?" And Elijah Muhammad looked at Dr. King. He said, "Both of us are from the South." He said, "We know that there are snakes that are poisonous, and there are snakes that are not. The rattlesnake is poisonous, but the king snake is not." He was telling Dr. King, we both are Georgia boys. We know that you have some white people that hate you with a passion, and you have some white people that will tolerate you and even help you. But a snake is a snake. Well, I don't know the final outcome of such a great meeting, but I do know this. They met in February, just before our National Savior's Day convention. And just a few months later, Dr. King was dead. What would America have been like if Dr. King and Elijah Muhammad, if the civil rights movement and the nationalist movement saw the common ground and each of us worked together for the common cause, which is the total liberation of our people? Look at what Dr. King said of government. Quote, "The demands in Congress and the administration for police measures as the primary solution are a sick echo of the solutions proposed as long ago as 1919 in the Washington riots." The Herald Tribune, a New York paper, called for a larger, better drilled, more ably commanded police organization. And the New York Globe anticipated the current congressional sentiment of not rewarding the rioters in stating on July 23rd, 1919, "There is nothing to be done but to quiet the rioters, by force. We make no pretense nowadays of settling the race question. We simply keep it in abeyance." They haven't settled the race question to this moment. In 1967, Dr. King presented a talk to the leaders and members of SCLC. And that talk was titled,
the crisis in America's cities, an analysis of social disorder, and a plan of action against poverty, discrimination, and racism in urban America. This address was made August 15th, 1967, in Atlanta, Georgia, 4 years after the famous I Have a Dream speech on the Washington Mall. Let us listen to his words and reflect. Dr. King said, "A million words will be written and spoken to dissect the ghetto outbreaks, but for a perceptive and vivid expression of culpability, I would submit 2 sentences written a century ago, at that time, by Victor Hugo." And he quoted Mr. Hugo in these words: "If the soul is left in darkness, sins will be committed. The guilty one is not he who commits the sin, but he who causes the darkness." End quote. Dr. King goes on to say, "The policy makers of the white society have caused the darkness. They created discrimination. They created slums. They perpetuate unemployment, ignorance, and poverty. It is incontestable and deplorable that Negroes have committed crimes, but they are derivative crimes. They are born of the greater crimes of the white society. When we ask Negroes to abide by the law, let us also declare that the white man does not abide by law in the ghettos. Day in and day out, he violates welfare laws to deprive the poor of their meager allotments. He flagrantly violates building codes and regulations. His police make a mockery of the law. He violates laws on equal employment and education and the provisions for civil services. The slums are the handiwork of a vicious system of the white society. Negroes live in them, but do not make them any more than a prisoner makes a prison." Dr. King went on to say, "Let us say it boldly, that if the total slum violations of law by the white man over the years were calculated and were compared with the law-breaking of a few days of riots, the hardened criminal would be the white man." He went on to say the second major cause of the crisis in the inner cities is unemployment, because it furnishes the bulk of the shock troops. Government figures reveal that the rate of unemployment for Negroes runs as high as 15%, and some cities, and for youth, up to 30 and 40%. It is not accidental that the major actors in all the outbreaks were the youth, with most of their lives yet to live. The slamming of doors in their faces could be expected to induce rage and rebellion. This is especially true when a boastful nation, while neglecting them, gloats over its wealth, power, and world preeminence. Yet, almost 40% of Negro youth waste their barren lives standing on street corners. Has anything changed? My dear President Obama and black people, in 50 years, has anything really changed? Dr. King went on to say, the third cause of what is going on in the inner city is discrimination, which pervades all experiences of Negro or black life. It pushes the Negro off the economic ladder after he has ascended a few rungs. It stultifies his initiative and insults his being. Even the few Negroes who realize economic security do not attain respect and dignity, because on upper levels, discrimination closes different doors to them. Discrimination is a hellhound that gnaws at Negroes in every waking moment of their lives to remind them that the lie of their inferiority is accepted as truth in the society dominating them. And the fourth cause, Dr. King went on to say, of the condition of the inner cities is the war in Vietnam. He said, Negroes are not only conscripted in double measure for combat, but they are told the billions needed for remaking their lives are necessary for foreign intervention. Democracy at home is starved to seek a spurious democracy abroad. Dictators, oligarchies are given our resources to perpetuate their rule at the rate of $80 million per day, but we cannot afford to spend 10% of this on anti-poverty programs. There has never been an American war opposed by so many. Opposition has now ascended to a clear majority of Americans and merges with the overwhelming majority of the world. The immoral, insane pursuit of conquest against the will of the people has to diminish respect for government. Among those deprived by government, the disrespect degenerates into contempt and cynicism. In testifying before the Senate last December, Dr. King said, the bombs in Vietnam explode at home. The security we profess to seek in foreign adventures, we will lose in our decaying cities. And what is the respect level of government today? The respect level of the government of the United States has gone down, the Congress to 14%, the President to 35 to 40%, the Supreme Court less than that. This is the Dr. King that was murdered 1 year later. This is the Dr. King that saw the hypocrisy of America. This is the Dr. King that is memorialized in a statue on the mall, frozen in stone like Lincoln and Jefferson and Washington. But the words of Lincoln are in history for the American people to feed on. The words of Thomas Jefferson and George Washington are also in books for the American people to feed on. But the American people are feeding on a dream speech from Dr. King and missing the point of the hypocrisy of a promissory note that yet remains unfulfilled. This is the Dr. King that was assassinated.
I went by Dr. King's monument. I've learned to love my brother, because if you would go and study the speeches that Dr. King made in the last 2 years of his life, you will know that Dr. King was not a dreamer. Dr. King had awakened from that dream and said, I quote, that my dream have turned to a nightmare. These are the words of Dr. King. And the night before he was assassinated, I want you to see what Dr. King was saying a few days before. Go ahead. Oh, my brother, Dr. King. He started talking about I want to quote him right, because this is too important. My son said, well, Dr. King said, I want to get the language right tonight. Well, that man, and when you read how Dr. King evolved, we will evolve with him. He was not a dreamer. He was a great revolutionary thinker, like his brother, Brother Malcolm.
We don't have to argue with anybody. We don't have to curse and go around acting bad with our words. We don't need any bricks and bottles. We don't need any Molotov cocktails. We just need to go around to these stores and to these massive industries in our country and say, God sent us by here to say to you that you're not treating his children right. And we come by here to ask you to make the first item on your agenda fair treatment where God's children are concerned. Now, if you are not prepared to do that, we do have an agenda that we must follow. And our agenda calls for withdrawing economic support from you. So as a result of this, we're asking you tonight to go out and tell your neighbors not to buy Coca-Cola in Memphis. Go by and tell them not to buy Seal Test milk. Tell them not to buy, what is the other bread? Wonder Bread. And what is the other bread come to Jesse? Tell them not to buy Hart's bread. As Jesse Jackson has said, up to now, only the garbage men have been feeling pain. Now we must kind of redistribute the pain. We are choosing these companies because they have been fair in their hiring policies, and we are choosing them because they can begin the process of saying they are going to support the needs and the rights of these men who are on strike. And then they can move on downtown and tell Mayor Loeb to do what is right. And not only that, we've got to strengthen black institutions. I call upon you to take your money out of the banks downtown and deposit your money in Tri-State Bank. We want a bank-in movement in Memphis. Go by the Savings and Loan Association. I'm not asking you something that we don't do ourselves in SCLC. Judge Hooks and others will tell you that we have an account here in the Savings and Loan Association from the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. We are telling you to follow what we are doing. Put your money there. You have 6 or 7 black insurance companies here in the city of Memphis. Take out your insurance there. We want to have an insurance in. Now, these are some practical things that we can do. We begin the process of building a greater economic base, and at the same time, we are putting pressure where it really hurts. And I ask you to follow through here. Now let me say, as I move to my conclusion, that we've got to give ourselves to this struggle until the end. Nothing would be more tragic than to stop at this point in Memphis. We've got to see it through. When we have our march, you need to be there. If it means leaving work, if it means leaving school, be there. Be concerned about your brother. You may not be on strike, but either we go up together or we go down together. Let us develop a kind of dangerous unselfishness.
When we decided, by studying the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., when the garbage men in Memphis went on strike, and Dr. King went to see about them. The night before he was assassinated, he started talking about redistributing pain. He thought, and rightly so, that when we're in pain, we have to inflict pain on those who inflict pain on us. Now, Farrakhan, wait just a minute. This sounds like revenge. No. It's called retaliation for injustice. So Dr. King said we should go by these big white companies and tell them that the Lord sent us by here to talk to you about your mistreatment of his people. Now, if justice for us is not on your agenda, we have something on our agenda. We're going to withdraw our dollars. Then he told them, take your money out of the white man's bank and put it in your own. Yes, he did. He said, don't buy Wonder Bread. Don't buy some of the products that were sold by whites to blacks in Memphis, but nobody cared about the little man.